December 28th. After the goats have had another pass, it still looks like this. And this is the primary victim that we're talking about. In the video from Christmas Eve, I made several points, but one of the points was that the goats are going to come back through. This actually contributes to my argument of how inefficient this is. The amount of time the goats spend in the area, how long it takes for them to eventually kind of do a little bit of what they were supposed to do. After, of course, all the natives have suffered greatly and the wildlife have been driven away. But I want to talk about efficiency, talk about planning, talk about using human intelligence. You see here, after the goats have come through, some of it was already laying down. They haven't actually reduced the amount that was here. They've just walked over the top of it. Now, some of it that wasn't laying down yet, they helped lay down by trampling it. What really needs to have happened was this, and then it being removed or burned. This shouldn't be here.
Let me drive this point home. Annual plants that have finished their life cycle and are dead will eventually lay down and get reabsorbed into the soil, which was already taking place before the goats arrived. So a lot of this was already laying down. Some of it that was managing to still stand, the goats simply knocked over. It's, generally speaking, still here. What the goats have accomplished is questionable, putting it nicely. There's another interesting discussion around this because some of you might be saying, well, it's good for the goats to be there to consume and get rid of that stuff because you don't want those invasive plants going back into the soil. And yet, if you go to the goat grazing websites, they actually brag about the fact that the goats improve the soil by trampling this vegetation back into the soil. So which side of that argument do you stand on?
And look what's underneath what I just pulled up. I'm also demonstrating how easy this is. Look at that. It's kind of crazy that I'm demonstrating the effectiveness of hand pulling weeds where the goats have already grazed. You see how easy it is for me to find examples to grab and pull. Well, that shouldn't be possible, should it? Considering that the goats were already here? I should have to go and look for a place that they haven't grazed yet to demonstrate the effectiveness of hand pulling. This is so sad. It's going to be astonishing to see if this thing can even come back and how long it's going to take for this to come back. But I want to talk about another advantage of the hand pulling. Doing the hand pulling means that you can exercise your human intelligence and pull what should be pulled while leaving alone what should not be messed with. Now, this does several things. This is better for the wildlife and the plant, obviously, by leaving behind the native helpful vegetation. You're also not wasting time killing something that you shouldn't be killing. Considering that the goats prioritize the natives, that's time being spent on something they shouldn't be spending time on. Which also means it's time they aren't spending doing what they should be doing. Calculate this into a human workforce. If you consider that the goats spent more than a day fenced in here the original time. A full day. Like 500 of them. And they failed this badly. Now consider the previous point that they're going to come back through. Someone's going to counter my argument by saying, hey, the goats aren't done. You can't judge them yet because they aren't finished. They aren't finished with the project. Well, that's part of the problem. You're going to spend even more time, more money, because time is money, as long as this is a contract for the goats to be here. Every bit of time that the goats are here is time that a team of volunteers led by a halfway competent person could be out here hand pulling. Not killing natives. Actually getting these things by the roots. Actually removing the fire fuel threat that people are all caught up in being scared of, despite the fact that the fire fuel is still here. I know I'm redundant, but I don't know how people can't understand that this fire abatement program that you're so excited about leaves behind the fire fuel and turns things that weren't fire fuel into fire fuel while hurting the habitat, hurting the wildlife, uglifying the hillside, making it smell like shit, and obviously just quickly redistributing the seeds. That's yellow star thistle. Do the goats eat some of it? Yeah, sure. Is that your best argument? Oh, they got some of it. They're there for 6 months and they got some of it. Hooray!
I can't emphasize enough the point that myself and a team of volunteers could have finished the job of the same area 500 goats were fenced into in one day. And we'd be done. We would have completed the job and done it effectively. 500 goats were in there for more than a day the first day and didn't do the job. And we're back and still didn't do the job and are going to be back yet again, maybe even 2 more times, and still will not have completed the job that myself and 5 volunteers could have done in a matter of hours while not harming the habitat. Guess how much it would cost me and my volunteers compared to the goat grazing program. At this point, you're just giving a free meal to a livestock industry. Not just free, you're paying them.
Previous victims, now just legitimate fire fuel. That one's not coming back. Who's worse, the humans or the goats? Well, everything the goats do is because of humans, so it's really all still humans. It's a reminder of what the coyote bush could look like. Imagine being able to hide down in there. Imagine being able to nibble on this. Eat it if you want to. Imagine being able to reproduce because your flowers haven't been consumed. That's going to look like the coyote bush I just showed you soon. You know what's really funny is without the goats screwing things up, these are actually much easier to hand pull. So I'm hand pulling at a spot that the goats haven't gotten to yet. Look how easy that is. So let's say a few volunteers. Let's say I get 5 volunteers. And, Humans aren't that active these days. I'm not going to ask too much of them. Let's say that they give me 2 hours. How much do you think we can accomplish giving me 2 hours a day, 5 people, and I get the same 6 months that you're giving the goats? Who's going to accomplish more in the end? And if my argument about efficiency isn't moving you, how about finances? Finances usually move people. I'm going to cost about $90,000 less than the goats. See, look at this. These are just things people don't think of. There's a reason these are built at the base of something like this. Shelter's important. The livestock destroy shelter.
Now, some of you might be saying, hey, if you think your method is going to work better, why not test and compare? Why not set up a study plot? Why not reserve a little area of that hillside, try your method, and then let the goats do the rest of the hillside and see what happens the next year? You know what? That's a great idea. They won't let me do it. In fact, let me tell you what I'm dealing with. In this area, I'm still dealing with the local authorities telling me that goat grazing isn't taking place there while I watch 500 goats go across the hillside every year. All right, so that's what we're dealing with. And in other areas, when I finally get them on the phone and confront them about this, they tell me that they are conducting scientific studies. And yet when I say, hand the studies over, or show me one person that's been out there, or let me talk to one person who's been observing, all of a sudden, radio silence. It really makes you wonder what exactly is taking place here when people who haven't even tested or found out whether or not this is effective blindly advocate for it. Not just the citizens who repeat what they're told, but the people in charge are blindly advocating for something that they don't know anything about.
You're claiming that is too much to tolerate. Oh, coyote bush is a problem. Stop it. Look at this. We got yarrow. I think this is yarrow. Do we have yarrow? It is yarrow. I was right. Fantastic. That's native. That's good. Oh, we got poppy. We got a poppy here, along with the yarrow. So, some people with a tiny bit of guidance and ecological training get rid of the weeds. Look how short it is right here anyway. For the goats to come through here is going to do nothing but destroy these natives they're trying, and we just keep taking away any chance they have of succeeding. Got more yarrow. More poppy. It's got yellow star thistle laying on top of it, unfortunately. Even this tree, from about there down, that should all be nice and green and providing shelter, and that's also going to get denuded. Let's get a good look at this. That's going to be uglified, stripped bare, and you humans are going to celebrate it as something good. Getting out of the wind so you can hear me talk. On the way up, I spoke with someone who lives locally, and she actually has some coffee berry planted on the pathway coming up, and she has some protective guards over it.
She said so far the deer haven't gotten them, and I said, well, it's the goats you need to worry about, because I've experienced the goats going through complete fencing to get to native plants and destroying them. And the person she was with actually agreed with me and talked about, in her years living there, how much the wildlife have disappeared in conjunction with the goat grazing program. So it was nice to hear that I'm not completely alone, but still very much in the minority. Now, this person also told me a story that a skunk had just moved in under her shed, and she was about to drive them away for fear that the skunk is about to have babies. And indeed, how many animals are looking for a place to have their young? And how many animals are being driven out of habitat by these goats? These are just things people don't think about. Is there a direct correlation to wildlife showing up in your yards at the same time that domestic livestock have shown up in their homes?
This is what coyote brush needs to be allowed to be doing right now. We still have the wounds from the past. That's all from the goats. You have the ones that just never came back. It's commendable what these plants are able to do. But you got to remember, they're overcoming harm that we not only caused, but paid for and celebrate. And some people have gotten on the bandwagon of saying, oh, coyote brush is fire fuel. Hey, are you gonna limit this fire fuel argument at any point in time? You're just gonna point to, oxygen is fire fuel. There's such little coyote brush left. We need to be happy when we see it. Because when you think, oh, get rid of it because of some fear that's unsubstantiated, it doesn't even matter if it's substantiated or not. If you're solely focused on yourself, what's good for you, or what you think is good for you, and you can't wrap your head around the fact that you're removing native shelter, native habitat, and there's hardly any of it available, then you're not considering the wildlife at all. When I say something like that, the people listening are going to split into different camps. They're going to be like, oh my God, whining about the wildlife. My God, come on, there's more important things to be concerned about. But then if you were to ever confront those people and say, oh, well, you don't really respect wildlife, or you don't really love animals, when they were hoping to convey themselves as wildlife lovers, well, which is it? You take pride in being superior and a human, and you people that are worried about wildlife are just hippies. And then someone accuses you of not loving animals or nature, and you'd be like, oh no, I love nature. I don't think it's fair to play both sides. You sit at home not knowing what's happening out on this hillside, not knowing, understanding, or empathizing with what the wildlife are going through, and defending a goat grazing program you haven't studied, but also pretending that you care about wildlife. I'm sorry, but that does not add up. Look at the tiny insects in this shot. Another thing that people probably don't think about. How many animals do those insects support? Insects are a great example of this disconnect. A lot of people just don't like insects at all, but they're an important food source. And these insects are so small that you could even include hummingbirds. Most people like hummingbirds. Even hummingbirds are included in this category of this being a food source. And who knows how many different animals depend upon those tiny little insects. And those tiny little insects are only there because of this coyote brush. There's a reason that you don't see little insects like that or any other form of life taking place where the coyote brush has been annihilated by the goats. Hard to believe this is the same plant, right? Same species on the same hillside, just the goats hadn't gotten to that one yet. You stop
an entire cycle from the tiny insects all the way up to being able to nest inside of it, eat the leaves, hide inside the leaves, or burrow under the plant. A quick look at California Native Plant Society gives you an idea of the importance of this plant. Even species I didn't think about, like bats, but you got moths, caterpillars, butterflies, bees, 290 plus species of insects, many species of birds, even rabbits and deer needing it for cover. Everything that requires the existence of this plant, and not the existence of this plant in a destroyed firewood form, but everything requiring a completed life cycle of this plant is brought to an end by a program that people are promoting as habitat friendly. And my final thought is I've only focused on coyote brush in these recent videos, and that's for a very sad reason. Show me any other native plant out there besides the trees that I can talk about. You have a few annuals trying to come up, and they're going to be gone before I get back. I'm reduced to focusing on the coyote brush, and there's hardly any of it, and even that is being destroyed even as I edit this video and hope someone out there will wake up.